Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS Y&R Full Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Genoa City was on edge, the kind of pressure that had been brewing for weeks eventually reaching a boiling point, and in the heart of it, Newman set up himself navigating a maze of falsehoods, treason, and shocking exposures that hovered to upend the fragile stability of his family and the entire Newman conglomerate. The day had begun with a deceptive calm that belied the storm brewing over the lives of those who called the megacity home, from the bejeweled halls of Newman Enterprises to the intimate corners of the Abbott Manse, where secrets rotted just beneath the face. Sienna, whose presence had long been a source of conspiracy and subtle manipulation, suddenly surfaced as a central figure in a plot that no bone. Not indeed the sharpest minds of Genoa City had completely anticipated her connection to Matt, whose motives had oscillated between rapacity and despair, now coming into shocking clarity. Nick, driven by an admixture of defensive instinct, grim curiosity, and a need for justice that framed on preoccupation, had strictly erected together fractions of eavesdropped exchanges, suspicious fiscal deals, and fugitive suggestions that suggested a larger, more minatory design at work, and as he brazened the verity, the depth of deception girding Sienna and Matt revealed itself in ways that transferred temblors through every corner of his world. The disclosure that Sienna's precisely constructed identity was a facade, strictly finagled to manipulate crucial players in Genoa City and gain access to sensitive commercial information, was only the morning, and the discovery of Matt's conspiracy, the retired dockets, and the layers of secretiveness that had shielded them both from scrutiny, exposed a position of duplicity that left indeed the most seasoned stagers of Newman Enterprises reeling. Families who had formerly trusted these individualities now set up themselves questioning every commerce, every smile, every participated moment, as the veneer of civility hulled down to reveal the raw and unsettling verity that fidelity in Genoa City was a commodity, traded and abused with ruthless perfection. The fallout extended far beyond the immediate circle of Nick and his family, splashing outward to touch the lives of those in the inner sanctum of the Abbott family, whose own snares with the Newman heritage meant that no one could remain untouched by the disclosure. Alliances formed and broken, rumored warnings and veiled pitfalls escalated the pressure to a fever pitch, while individualities like Victoria and Billy grappled with the counter-accusations, each trying to cover their own interests, salvage what they could of their reports, and help the disastrous collapse of connections that had taken times, indeed decades, to make. Meanwhile, Sienna, whose cunning and rigidity had allowed her to weave a web that entangled some of the most important numbers in the megacity, was forced to defy the consequences of exposure, realizing that the careful equilibrium she had maintained was now shattered, leaving her vulnerable to retribution, legal jeopardy, and social exile, and Matt, whose provocations had been muddied by a combination of ambition and particular snares, had to navigate the unfaithful waters of responsibility, fidelity, and tone preservation. The drama escalated as old grievances resurfaced, unhealed injuries between rival families and estranged suckers restarted, and the intricate social fabric of Genoa City, formerly stretched thin by times of dissonance, backstabbings, and business battles, began to fray dangerously, with indeed putatively minor opinions carrying disproportionate consequences. In the midst of this chaos, Nick's loyal determination to uncover the verity, cover his family, and assert control over the twisting situation came both a source of alleviation and a catalyst for conflict, drawing admiration from abettors and inciting fear in adversaries, as every move he made, every decision, and every disclosure transferred shockwaves across the tightly knit, yet treacherously competitive community of Genoa City, where fidelity was fluid, secrets were munitions, and the line between friend and foe was constantly redrawn. The pressure between commercial ambition and particular vendettas boosted, creating a terrain where ethical boundaries blurred and moral negotiations came ineluctable, forcing characters to defy uncomfortable trueness about themselves, their solicitations, and the lengths they were willing to go to cover what they valued most. As the days unfolded, the megacity came a pressure cooker of emotion and conspiracy, with each character's conduct interweaving in changeable ways, creating a shade of conflict, passion, and unanticipated alliances, where every rumored discussion, every covert meeting, and every transitory regard carried the weight of implicit bull of SMR, and where the lowest oversight could spark a chain response that altered the course of lives ever. The disclosure of Sienna and Matt's true individualities didn't just append Nick's precisely maintained world, it acted like a shockwave through the veritably foundations of Genoa City, forcing every character, from the most important captains to the most supplemental residers, to review alliances, trust, and survival strategies, while contemporaneously exposing the vulnerabilities essential in connections erected on convenience, ambition, or collective advantage rather than genuine fidelity. Victoria, floundering with her own shattered sense of judgment and the creeping mindfulness that appearances in Genoa City could no way be taken at face value, set up herself questioning the motives of everyone around her, scuffling with the consummation that indeed the people closest to her might harbor secrets that could one day be weaponized against her, her children, or her conglomerate. Billy, whose relationship with the Newman family had always oscillated between genuine connection and competitive pressure, came a fulcrum of emotional turbulence, torn between guarding family interests and maintaining his own moral compass, while also scuffling with the weight of knowledge that any decision he made could have disastrous consequences not only for his particular life but for the intricate web of power and influence that shaped the megacity. Meanwhile, the Abbott family, long habituated to their own cycles of treason and disclosure, set up themselves entangled in the fate, with Mariah, Abby, and other members defying the delicate verity that trust, formerly fractured, could no way be completely restored, and that the fallout from Sienna and Matt's exposure had counter-accusations that extended far beyond a single battle, touching every aspect of social, emotional, and fiscal life in Genoa City. As the drama unfolded, the corridors of Newman Enterprises came an arena of strategic maneuvering, with boardroom accommodations, covert information exchanges, and subtle cerebral warfare all playing out under the scrutiny of a megacity primed for reproach, while at the same time, the Newman family's particular connections were strained to breaking point, with backstabbings resurfacing, old injuries continuing, and the grim pressure of public perception hanging to fracture indeed the most stalwart bonds. It came clear that no one could remain untouched by the events, and as whispers of Sienna and Matt's plot spread through social circles, business networks, and the intricate chassis of musketeers and rivals, pressure mounted exponentially, with paranoia, dubitation, and sweat coloring every commerce, every decision, and every transitory regard. The megacity itself sounded to hold its breath as the complications of identity, deception, and manipulation intertwined, revealing the precarious balance between public facades and private intentions, and pressing the fragility of trust in a place where ambition frequently overshadowed morality. In this terrain, indeed casual hassles carried weighty counter-accusations, and every smile or handshake came an implicit mask hiding ulterior motives, while every secret exhumed set off a chain response of dubitation and protective strategies. Characters who formerly sounded predictable in their commitment now revealed new confines of complexity, as old alliances fractured and unanticipated hookups surfaced, driven by participated interest, necessity, or the instinct to survive in a megacity where reports were currency and treason could strike at any moment. The cerebral pressure on individualities reached unsupportable situations, as the strain of navigating this unfaithful terrain forced everyone to defy uncomfortable trueness about themselves and the people they allowed. They knew, pressing the incongruity of closeness in a megacity where emotional closeness was frequently indistinguishable from strategic computation. At the same time, the consequences of Sienna and Matt's exposure resounded through the coming generation, impacting the youthful grown-ups and children who were witnessing, learning, and internalizing assignments about trust, fidelity, and power that would shape their own paths, frequently in ways that imaged or varied sprucely with the lives of their parents. Every commerce, no matter how putatively minor, came loaded with implicit meaning, and as Nick, Victoria, Billy, and the extended Newman and Abbott families navigated this unpredictable geography, the megacity itself sounded to palpitate with pressure, reflecting the high stakes, changeable twists, and emotionally charged competitions that defined the social and commercial terrain of Genoa City. Indeed, neutral parties, like longtime musketeers or business associates, were drawn into the whirlpool, forced to choose sides, rethink faithfulness, and make opinions that could either guard their future or inadvertently beget new heads, illustrating the necessary graveness of reproach and the connected nature of lives in a megacity where character was as critical as pedigrees, and information could be weaponized in ways that reshaped the balance of power overnight. Meanwhile, Sienna's own response to the exposure was a blend of calculated defense, raw vulnerability, and hopeless strategizing, as she tried to alleviate the damage, save her own standing, and navigate the unfaithful waters of legal, social, and domestic consequences, while Matt grappled with the binary pressures of guilt and tone preservation, fating that every decision he made in the coming days would not only determine his own fate but could also spark slinging impacts for those around him. The combination of particular stakes, commercial maneuvering, and high emotional intensity created a terrain in which suspension, conspiracy, and pressure were universal, with each character's choices resonating through multiple layers of the megacity's social fabric, altering connections, shifting power dynamics, and reshaping the geography of influence in changeable ways. Meanwhile, once backstabbings, undetermined conflicts, and stewing battles surfaced from the murk, intertwining with the current extremity and farther complicating the narrative, while moral nebulosity came the dereliction lens through which conduct were judged, forcing everyone to navigate an innocently complex and emotionally charged geography, where right and wrong were frequently defined by perspective, necessity, and survival rather than universal principles. The grim pace of exposures, counter-revelations, and slinging consequences assured that stability remained fugitive, and as alliances shifted, secrets multiplied, and every character tried to recapture control over their life or their conglomerate, the intricate cotillion of power, fidelity, and emotion unfolded with a meter that was as changeable as it was inexorably compelling, creating a story that was at formally intensively particular, astronomically social, and endlessly suspenseful, landing the substance of what made Genoa City the gauntlet of ambition, drama, and mortal complexity that it had always been. As the reverberations from Sienna and Matt's Unmasking continued to launch through Genoa City, the impact on individual lives came decreasingly complex, with every family, fellowship, and business relationship caught in the curve of the fallout, and the Newman family, in particular, set up themselves facing challenges that were as important emotional as they were strategic. As Nick's defensive instincts drove him to anticipate implicit pitfalls, preemptively offset manipulations, and shield his favored bones from the consequences of a deception that had been times in the timber, while contemporaneously scuffling with his own wrathfulness, frustration, and moping dubieties about his judgment and the trustability of those he'd trusted most, pressing the intricate interplay between particular fidelity and the demands of power. Victoria's internal conflict strengthened as she counted her liabilities as a mama, a family, and a business leader, realizing that every move she made had far-reaching counter-accusations for the stability of both her family and her conglomerate, and that the line between action and inactivity was perilously thin in a megacity where misapprehension could lead to social ruin, fiscal collapse, or particular treason, forcing her to navigate a complicated geography of contending precedences, clashing commitment, and changeable mortal jest, while seeking to maintain countenance and authority in the face of raising pressure. Meanwhile, Billy, whose emotional intelligence and intuitive grasp of mortal jest had long allowed him to manage complex family dynamics, now faced a new challenge coordinating his desire to do what was right with the practical necessity of maintaining alliances, guarding vulnerable family members, and icing that the Newman heritage remained complete, all while recycling the shock of knowing that dishonesty had sneaked indeed the most sacred corners of his life, leaving him constantly watchful, skeptical, and apprehensive that indeed the closest confidants could harbor retired motives. Across the megacity, the ripple goods were inversely pronounced, as secondary characters, minor players, and those preliminarily considered supplemental set up themselves suddenly drawn into the drama, whether by virtue of association, propinquity, or circumstance, illustrating the connected nature of Genoa City, where no bone was an insulation and every action, purposeful or unintentional, had the implicit to spark a waterfall of unlooked-for consequences that affected multiple layers of social, commercial, and particular networks. In this terrain, the subtle complications of manipulation, persuasion, and influence came tools of survival, and those complete at reading the nuances of mortal jest. Detecting vacillation, exploiting instability, or using ambition, set up themselves empowered to shape issues, while those less perceptive or less assertive risked being swept away, marginalized, or exposed to public scrutiny and private treason. Sienna, in particular, came a study in the duality of vulnerability and cunning, as she oscillated between the fear convinced by exposure and the calculated strategies she employed to alleviate damage, save connections where possible, and manipulate issues in her favor, revealing both the depth of her ambition and the fragility of her constructed identity, which had depended upon secretiveness, deception, and picky disclosure to maintain influence and control. Matt, contemporaneously entangled in professional and particular dilemmas, faced a similar reckoning, fating that the impacts of the reproach extended beyond immediate consequences and had the implicit to reshape his unborn line, affecting not only his social standing and fiscal security but also his particular connections and character, taking him to navigate a delicate balance of admission, deviation, and strategic planning in order to survive within the enduring ecosystem of Genoa City. The complex interplay of these factors created a multi-layered narrative, where once opinions bisected with present consequences, and where emotional, fiscal, and social stakes were intertwined to an extent that each character's choices came vital, impacting events in ways that couldn't be prognosticated, controlled, or fluently eased, pressing the volatility and unpredictability that defined life in the megacity. Family dynamics, always central to the unfolding drama, came both a source of strength and pressure, as characters reckoned on one another for emotional support, strategic sapience, and moral guidance, while contemporaneously scuffling with the essential pitfalls of over-reliance, lost trust, or the consequences of compromised judgment, emphasizing the delicate balance between dependence and autonomy in a world defined by query, ambition, and the constant trouble of treason. The social ecosystem of Genoa City, characterized by tight-knit networks of influence, fidelity, and contest, responded to the extremity with an admixture of opportunism, empathy, and fear, as individualities recalibrated connections, reassessed precedences, and pursued new avenues for advancement or tone preservation, all while negotiating the precarious boundaries of morality, legitimacy, and particular fidelity, creating a continuously shifting geography of interpersonal dynamics that amplified both pressure and conspiracy, leaving every commerce invested with implicit consequences that extended far beyond the immediate moment. Meanwhile, the broader community, from business elites to social influencers, absorbed the shockwaves of disclosure, with gossip, enterprise, and scuttlebutt proliferating, occasionally obscuring the verity while contemporaneously accelerating the dispersion of critical information, forcing individualities to constantly reassess the credibility of their sources, the trustability of abettors, and the intentions of adversaries, and revealing that in a megacity as connected and competitive as Genoa City, perception frequently held as important power as reality, impacting opinions, shaping reports, and determining issues in ways that were changeable and sometimes ruthless. As the weeks progressed, the cerebral burden of the extremity came decreasingly apparent, with characters passing stress, mistrustfulness, and emotional fatigue that tested their adaptability, interpersonal chops, and capacity for reasoned decision timber, while contemporaneously furnishing openings for growth, adaptation, and unanticipated alliances, as adversity constantly revealed idle strengths, untapped coffers, and unexpected capabilities, emphasizing the duality of extremity as both destructive and generative. Particular intentions collided with moral imperatives, fiscal pressures bisected with domestic fidelity, and emotional vulnerabilities came points of influence and battle, generating a narrative viscosity that captured the substance of high-stakes, character-driven drama, and emphasizing the idea that in Genoa City, as in life, complexity, unpredictability, and mortal fallibility were ever present, shaping issues in ways that were frequently compelling, shocking, and deeply mortal. Amidst these pressures, secondary stories intertwined, from romantic snares to professional battles, from generational conflicts to undetermined literal pressures, each adding layers of texture and nuance, creating a densely woven shade of connected lives and choices, and pressing the accretive impact of putatively minor opinions, hidden motives, and precisely guarded secrets, which, when exposed, revealed the intricate, frequently fragile, scaffolding upon which particular and professional reports rested. As the narrative evolved, The intensity of consequences escalated, climaxing in moments of disclosure, battle, and conciliation, each pointed by emotional resonance, narrative significance, and strategic import, demonstrating that in Genoa City, life was contemporaneously particular, public, and performative, and that every act, whether noble, selfish, or nebulous, could reverberate through multiple spheres of influence, producing issues that were as changeable as they were consequential, buttressing the megacity's character as a gauntlet of mortal drama, ambition, and adaptability. The slinging goods of Sienna and Matt's exposure continued to resonate, forcing every character to defy questions of identity, fidelity, and morality, while contemporaneously testing the strength of connections, the boundaries of ambition, and the adaptability of particular and commercial patrimonies, creating a narrative ecosystem in which pressure, suspension, and emotional complexity were ever present, and in which the confluence of particular history, strategic computation, and emotional investment created a layer terrain that was as immersive as it was relentlessly compelling, eventually landing the substance of what had always made The Young and the Restless a drama of enduring seductiveness, intensity, and mortal complexity.